Early this morning, the fat thirsty girl was licking the broken sand of the modern living room with her paws, holding a can of top-level fish jars and licking them with relish. She threw her tail and threw it away, and she felt like a retired man. The sunlight came in from the window, illuminating its fat body with a flash of light. It also twisted its head and muttered to the air, "Humph, this figure is simply the strongest meow in the universe." Who wouldn't shout a terrifying beast? Before he finished speaking, his claws slid and he slapped a small box of luminous light on the table. The next second, a dazzling white light swallowed it, and even the sound of meow could not be as good as he shouted. After a long eye, the thunderous fat cat fell directly from the sky and smashed into the imperial garden of the Daxia Dynasty palace with a bang. The precious potted plants were pressed into buns, and the soil was flying all over the sky. The birds in the garden were so scared that they were crippled like they were escaping. In the early morning, it was a quiet moment when the birds and flowers scented, but the meow was finally turned yellow. Fei Miao shook the soil on her body and looked up. A group of old-fashioned waiters came over with long spears in their hands, all of whom were stunned. His eyes lit up, and his horse raised his chest, his tail buzzing like an airline. "Don't you kneel down quickly. This is the thunderous fat cat. Your ancestors are experiencing ascent." The waiters were all dumbfounded, and their heads roared, This cat will say, can it be a monster?" Another soldier couldn't hold it in his mouth, and he put his little voice on his sword. "The monster is not so fat, I'm afraid that it can be installed in the lower half of the imperial kitchen." The fat cat was not angry when he heard it, and his claws slammed. "I don't know how to have a big figure. This is the body of a big man, who is invincible in the universe. Do you understand? With one punch, the mountains collapse and the earth will break. Take the way quickly, I want to see your boss," he said, shaking his stomach, as if he could really break the mountain. While the waiters were busy chasing the cat, an old lady secretly approached the smashed potted plant, lowered her head and raised a luminous box, muttering in a low voice, "What's this? Could it be related to the strange things in the palace recently?" After saying that, he quickly hid his sleeves, swept the corners of his eyes around, and retreated behind the crowd. The sound of rapid pace spreads from afar. Emperor Yonghua heard the sound of the face and was filled with anger. He was wearing a dragon robe, a golden crown, and his body was as powerful as a mountain. Even the birds in the garden dared not approach it. But when he saw the fat cat in front of him, he was stunned. Fat Miao looked at him, her eyes were as bright as a searchlight. She jumped onto a stone and slapped out a posture that she thought was super handsome. "Oh? Are you the boss here? Look at your head here, there are still some arrangements. Come on, arrange a treasure for this big boy and then add a little fish to dry. I'm tired." Emperor Yonghua's mouth twitched, and after a long time he put on a sentence. "What is this? I dare to play wild in my imperial garden. I really don't know how to live or die." He slammed his hand and the servants came up to catch the cat, but the fat cat was as flexible as a ball. It opened in 3 or 2 seconds, and he still didn't forget to turn around and mock him. "Hey, wanna catch me? Go back and practice for a few hundred years before talking." He thought happily in his heart, as expected, these mortals fell down as soon as they saw me, and the troops were all moving. Will they still have to beat the drums? The scene became bigger and bigger, and the servants couldn't catch it, so they had to force the thunder fat cat to please the palace hall. It was the morning court time, and the civil and military officials in the hall stood in a uniform manner, and the atmosphere was so harmonious that they could hear the heartbeat. As a result, the fat cat was pushed in by 2 servants, and they were still slamming, "Let me go. This big man will leave by himself. Are you watching these many people? Can you give me some face?" The waiter led the head and reported to Emperor Yonghua, "Your Majesty, this cat. It doesn't listen, but it still calls it a great cosmic." Emperor Yonghua sat on the dragon chair, knocking his fingers lightly on the armrest. His eyes closed the figure of the group of hairy pokers, and thought to himself, the way this thing is unknown, and he is fearless. Could it be that there is really a mystery? He was about to set off the pot, but the fat cat heard the fat cat open his mouth first. Okay, since everyone is here, then start to seal it." This great man has made great contributions to saving the world, and he has to seal it up like a tribe of the gods of the town, right? After speaking, he also used his claws to make hair care, as if he was ready to accept worship. The hall exploded in an instant, and several old ministers were so angry that their beards were trembling, and they did not dare to make a sound. Several young officials couldn't help laughing, and the atmosphere in the court was out of control. Emperor Yongle was so angry that his face was blue, but looking at the cat's appearance of fearlessness, he didn't know what to do. He slapped the dragon chair suddenly and said, "Roastful. My court was so bad that a cat was thrown into trouble. Come on, take it down." But when Fei Miao was dragged away, she still turned around and shouted, "Hey, brother, don't be moved. I'm here to help you. Keep me in mind, don't blame me if you regret it in the future." She was confused in her brain. What's the matter? My great man is in a state of decline, why don't he be grateful when he sees others? Is it hard to help the guy with his eyes long and his brain gone? The servants dragged him to the cell with all their hands and feet, but who hadn't noticed that Emperor Yongle's eyes were always following the figure of the group of Mao Zizi, thinking. Far away, an old minister in the corner of the hall wrote a few words in a low head, as if he was recording the ridiculous drama of today. In the evening of that day, the fat Pierce Thunderbolt was dragged away by the servants from the court hall and directly led to a dense dungeon in the deep part of the palace. The torches swayed along the way, the stone wall was covered with moss, and there was a damp and musty smell in the air. It was like the scene of a horror movie I had watched. At any time, you could jump out of a scary cat. But Fei Miao was not panicked at all, put her paws on the waiter's shoulder, and hummed a self-created song. This is a VVIP in this roster. Will there be red carpets and flashlights later? When he arrived at the door of the cell, the young servant Xiaolin pushed Fei Miao and sweating profusely, trembling in his mouth, "Sir, you should fold it first, and the little one will go to the report." Fei Miao heard the two words "sir," and her tail instantly rolled into the sky. Her claws took a few moments on the wall, and she said in a singular manner, "Okay, I will give you face and take a nap here first. But remember, there must be a small fish for dinner, otherwise I won't cooperate." After saying that, she shook her hair, and she looked like a big boss's head. Kobayashi lowered her head and looked at the claw marks on the wall, her eyes staring like a table tennis ball, and said, This pattern. Lord God, are you the secret number of a certain worldly sect? You are willing to serve." He clasped his fists with his hands, and his posture was as standard as if he was performing an ancient drama. Fat Miao was stunned for a moment and thought to herself, "What's the matter? I just tried to solve the problem." But he couldn't speak till he crawled with a lever. "Oh? The young man has good eyesight. I am really responsible for this pattern. Secret. But if you get some fish dry, I can think it through." Kobayashi hurriedly and turned around and ran to find something to eat. Fat Miao squatted at the door, staring at Xiaolin's far-off back, and almost laughed out loud. "Ha ha ha, this is such a trick to help the ancients. I can just take 2 pens to offer me as my ancestor. But this broken land is too shabby. No, I have to discuss the conditions when that kid comes back." Not long after, Kobayashi came back with a hard dry and whispered, "Sir, this is the best one that the young one can find. You will." Before he finished speaking, Fei Miao took a bite and spit out, throwing her head in disgust. "What junk food? My big man's stomach is 5-star. Do you understand? I don't know this thing if I feed it to the dog." Shaolin looked embarrassed and muttered, "I really have no choice. Don't rush me again." Fei Miao's eyes lit up and her claws slapped. "Then go to the imperial kitchen to steal the order. Remember, I want fresh ones, I'll wait." Just as Kobayashi slipped away again, a sudden rush of footsteps outside the cell suddenly ejaculated. After a stick of incense, several old men in official uniforms walked over and said in a humble manner, "Your Majesty has an order to take this cat to the side hall to try to see if it is a demon or a god." When Fei Miao was raised up, she still shouted, Hey, light. This big man will leave by himself. Are you watching so many people? Can you give me some face?" When we arrived at the side hall of the imperial palace, The fire was bright and civil and military officers were arranged on both sides, and the atmosphere was as serious as if they were filming a regular historical drama. But when the fat cat was pushed into the middle, the entire scene suddenly tilted. A fat old official pointed at it and asked loudly, "If you are a monster, you should show your divine power soon. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude." A tall and thin official next to him said in a low voice, "Is it really a mysterious weapon? The world has been in a strange situation recently. Can you tell me it has something to do with this cat?" Another young official held his laughter and replenished his sword. "Yes, don't just brag, you'd fly and take a look." The fat cat heard it, licked his claws, and thought to himself, "Fly? Simple. Isn't this the climax of the crowning genre?" I was shocked. So, he raised his rounded belly and jumped up with his breasts, trying to show off his turning in the air for 3.5 weeks. As a result, with a bang, it fell into a bunch of hairballs and rolled on the ground for a few circles before stopping. The palace was silent at first, and then burst into laughter. The fat old minister coughed with a smile. "Ha ha, is this divine power? I'm afraid even a chicken can't fly." The young official wiped his eyes. "Don't say it, I'm going to laugh apart. Is this cat a funny one?" The fat cat got up tightly, sorted out, and hummed calmly, "The ground is too slippery, which makes me miserable. You'll wait and see next time." In my heart, I'm panicking and shrinking my claws, secretly glancing at the knife in the guard's hand, and can't help but shiver. It's over, they won't really want to roast me, right? I don't want to become a court-roasted cat skewer. No, I have to come up with some new tricks to fool them. So, it suddenly has an idea, uses its tail to write crookedly on the ground, wanting to pretend to be mysterious. Unexpectedly, that tall and thin official stared at it for a glance, muttered in a low voice, "This handwriting, how is it like ancient runes?" The scene is again a burst of discussion. The Yonla Emperor is sitting in the main seat, coldly watching, his fingers lightly tapping the armrest, his gaze like a knife sweeping over the fat cat, as if to scrape off its fur one by one. He asks in a low voice to the old eunuch beside him, "What do you think? Is this thing really something with a background, or is it playing us?" The old eunuch lowers his voice, "Your Majesty, this cat's words and actions are absurd, but there have indeed been unusual movements in the Jianghu recently, perhaps." Before he finishes speaking, the fat cat jumps up again to show balancing skills, resulting in directly knocking over the candlestick, with a crash sound, almost burning down the side hall. The scene instantly becomes chaotic, with guards busy putting out the fire, and officials some cursing, some laughing wildly. The fat cat takes advantage of the chaos to slip to the corner, pretending to be calm and licking its paws. Shaolin finally squeezes in, comforting in a low voice, "Divine beast sir, don't be anxious, they are just testing." Before the words are finished, a low-ranking civil official walks by with a record in hand, muttering to himself, "The pattern scratched by this cat, although it seems like random scribbles, has some similarity to the lost seal rumored in the Jianghu recently, to be investigated." After saying that, he casually stuffs the record into the file pile, as if no one notices. The Yonla Emperor's gaze sweeps over the chaotic scene, finally falling on the fat cat. He waves his hand to signal everyone to be quiet, and speaks in a low and deep voice, "Enough. Today ends here, take this thing back, and discuss it tomorrow." The fat cat immediately straightens its chest and raises its head, winking at Shaolin. "Did you hear? The big boss has spoken, quickly arrange dinner, this great hero is starving." The next morning, the thunderous fat cat is still snoring in the cell, angered by the nonsense tested by that group of old men last night, dreaming of dancing with a pile of dried fish, but Shaolin's low shout directly wakes it up, "Divine beast sir, get up. There's a task from above." Sunlight squeezes in hard from the small window, and in the distance, the palace morning bell dong dong rings. The fat cat unhappily turns over, scratches its ears with its claws, and hums, "What task? This great hero performed until midnight last night, back sore and waist aching, I won't do it without some benefits." Shaolin squats at the cell door, saying in a low voice, "It's just to deliver a letter, very simple, just to a small tea house outside the capital." Above said, this matter must be handled by you personally. The fat cat hears this, its eyes whoosh light up, its tail sticks up like an antenna, and it immediately jumps up. What? Out of the palace? This is a great opportunity for this great hero to save the world. Quickly open the door, don't dawdle. In its head, it's bubbling with joy. Finally, I can slip out of this damn place, maybe even get a few skewers of grilled fish. Out of the palace, walking along the official road to the capital, the morning mist is still hanging, there aren't many people on the road, occasionally a carriage rattle passes by. The fat cat deliberately walks like a great general, tail held high, shouting in its mouth, "All open your eyes and look, this great hero is descending to the mortal world today, specially to save you common folks." A few farmers carrying loads on the roadside are stunned, stopping to discuss, "Oh my, how can this cat talk? It's a ghost." Shaolin initially follows with his head down respectfully, but hearing the fat cat brag more and more outrageously, finally can't help but mutter in a low voice, "Divine beast sir, is this a patrol or attracting hate? If you keep shouting, the whole city will surround us." The fat cat waves its paw, carelessly retorting, "Less nonsense. This great hero wants a high-profile appearance, if you're not convinced, try meowing yourself." Arriving at the market outside the capital, the place is bustling with people, vendors shouting until their throats smoke, the air filled with the scent of candied haws and steamed buns. The fat cat sniffs, and its stomach immediately growls. It rolls its eyes and decides to put on a new show for everyone, trotting to a candied haw stall, shouting, "Watch carefully, this great hero is bringing you good fortune today, this stall will definitely boom." Then it starts exaggeratingly promoting, "This is a heavenly sweet treat, eat it for longevity, come by quickly." As a result, it really attracts a crowd, the vendor is so happy he can't close his mouth, and the stock sells out in less than half an hour. The vendor is a goateed uncle, smiling and patting the fat cat's head, "Little brother, you're really something. I'll treat you to a skewer." The fat cat proudly bites the candied haws, turns its head to raise its eyebrows at Shaolin, "How's that?" This great hero casually makes a move and becomes the savior of the business world. Shaolin first covers his forehead and sighs, then can't help but laugh, muttering in a low voice, "Divine beast sir, is this good fortune blown out by your mouth? I can't learn this." The fat cat glares at him and retorts, "Don't be jealous of me. This is unintentional success, do you understand? Quickly get me a bamboo stick, this candied haws is sticking to my teeth." After leaving the market, the people finally arrived at an inconspicuous small tea house outside the city. The wooden table and wooden chairs were squeaking, and the tea fragrance was filled with sniffs. Several tea guests sat and chatted in three or three, and the atmosphere was a bit strange. Several people next to him heard the fat cat shouting, "I'm a big man," when entering the door, took a sneak peek, and then quickly lowered his head to drink tea, as if he didn't want to cause trouble. Fat Miao held the letter in her arms and glanced at a man in a gray robe in the corner. The other party lowered his head and drank tea, as if waiting for someone. Fat Miao Dun ran over, slapped the letter on the table, and said in the most arrogant language, "Hey, brother, your express delivery has arrived. I am a big man who delivered it by himself. Thank you for not catching the head quickly." The man in gray robe looked up at him, his expression as cold as ice, his fingers froze slightly, his eyes flashed with a sense of vigilance, but he immediately stuffed the letter into him and replied coldly, "I understand." After saying that, he continued to drink tea, he ignored him at all. Fat Miao was stunned for a moment, and glanced sharply at the man's waist with a small copper card engraved with strange flower patterns. Without further ado, the other party quickly stuffed it into his sleeve. Fat Miao couldn't help but talk, "Hey, brother, this thing is quite trendy, where did you come from? I'll give me a piece of cake?" The man just sneered, and didn't respond at all, and said in a low voice, "This cat is a bit interesting." Fat Miao touched a soft boy and was a little unhappy. She turned her head and complained to Kobayashi, "What's wrong with this person? I don't have a sense of humor. Chatting with him is like singing a love song against a stone." The paw slammed his chin and muttered to himself, "But the copper card looks weird no matter how strange it is, wouldn't it be a secret number in the world, right?" I don't want to be mistaken for being the boss of the school anymore, it's so terrible. Forget it, let's not care about these for now. When I go back, I have to call Kobayashi for a good reward. Kobayashi stood behind and observed quietly, with a flash of doubt in her eyes, but she didn't say anything, just kept up silently. After leaving the small tea house, Fei Miao and Kobayashi were on the sun at noon and followed the suburbs of the city to the Imperial Palace Road. The sun shone down obliquely, the weeds on the road swayed like dancing, and there was a bit of earthy smell in the air. Fei Miao walked around and slapped her chin with her claws, her tail was high, and she was humming in her mouth, I can meet the mysterious boss when I send a letter. As expected, it's the focus everywhere I go. The charm is so irresistible. Kobayashi followed behind her lowered head, and she wanted to roll her eyes when she heard it, and muttered in a low voice, Sir, no matter how much you shine with this charm, we may not be able to get into the palace. As they were talking, the two of them passed by a broken road. The blue bricks and gray tiles were covered with grass. There were half a brain bag missing from the stone lion at the door. There were also a few roars coming from far away. The atmosphere was as strange as a ghost movie. Fei Miao's eyes lit up, and his claws slapped the ground, and he shouted excitedly, Hey, there is a treasure in this place at first glance. I must explore. Kobayashi's face collapsed in an instant, and he hurriedly stood in front, Sir, this broken place is not in opposition, let's go quickly. Fei Miao didn't care about these things, and she swung her tail and directly drew from Kobayashi's legs, Stop talking. I'm born to explore the house, what can this little broken view be? Keep up. Kobayashi covered her brain and had to follow in her head, muttering in her heart, Why didn't this cat stop? Pushing the wooden door that was creaking, a musty smell came over my nose. The yard was full of dead leaves, and the plaque of the hall was crooked and I couldn't even see the words clearly. The Fei Miao raised her head and chest, like a patrolman, sniffing from all over the place, and still bragging, Look at this battle, there must be a big secret. When this big man dug it out, you mortals can only kneel down and shout 666. As he was speaking, he stepped on the loose stone slab, and with a click, the ground collapsed directly. The two fell down, and Kobayashi shouted in surprise, Sir, what are you fucking again? The Fei Miao exploded, but she said, Don't panic. This is a secret link that I specially opened. When they fell into the dark floor, the two of them fell to 7 or 8 corners. They couldn't see anything around them, and only the strange runes on the wall emitted a little light. The air was filled with low voices, and it was approaching like a ghost crying. The empty eyes with several skeletons in the corners seemed to be staring at people, and their skin was numb. Fei Miao was calm and sat up with her hair shaking and cleared her throat, cough, little scene. I was the king of underground exploration back then. What's this kind of habit? After saying that, she accidentally hit the wall and hummed in pain. Kobayashi sat beside her, her hands trembling, her face turned pale, and she complained in a low voice, Sir, if you come again, we are afraid we will become a permanent exhibit underground. Fei Miao glanced at him, and then leaned over and sat back to back, and he began to talk nonsense. I heard it well, that year I slapped 10 monsters with one claw, and those guys left and gave me a basket of fish drying. This is called the king style, do you understand? Kobayashi said powerlessly, Can you collect this story first? Is fish drying important or is life important? As we were chatting, a small stone fell from the top and hit Fei Miao's tail with a slap. It jumped up with a screaming sound, and its eyes were about to burst out. Who dares to steal this person? Xiaolin rushed over to check it out, but still couldn't help but say sourly, Sir, don't be upset anymore, I don't want to be buried with you. Fei Miao hummed and reluctantly smiled, Hey, Xiaolin, you're quite considerate. I'll say it earlier, I'll cover you in the future. I rolled my eyes in my heart, how did the number 1 fierce cat in this universe fall into this ghost place? If I had known that I wouldn't wear a pussy, I would just go back to the palace to lie flat and eat the dried fish so delicious. At this moment, the rune arrangement was a little familiar when he suddenly remembered the broken songs that the old man sang in the market seemed to be worth it. The fat cat stood up and started to knock on the runes with his claws, and hummed himself, "Pull the middle between the 3 left and the 2 right, this is the best thing to beat the drum." Kobayashi was stunned and couldn't touch his head at all. "Sir, are you summoning the soul or performing the show?" As a result, Kobayashi accidentally kicked a stone beside him. With the sound of low pine became even more urgent. Fat Miao was stunned for a moment, and after continuing to knock on the last time, the floor door actually opened smoothly. The glimmer of light came in, and the low voice stopped. Fat Miao jumped up and looked proud. "Did you see it? When I met this big man, this machine turned out to be bad, and I knelt down with a light claw." Kobayashi stood behind, from suspicion to being speechless, and finally could only smile bitterly. "Okay, sir, my mistake can be considered an assist." A strange feeling appeared in my heart. Is this goods full of energy or is it really informative? No, I have to keep an eye on it, otherwise what will happen next time? The moment before the door opened, the Fat Miao casually glanced at the stone brick beside her. The small pattern carved on it looked a bit like the man in gray robes copper brand pattern. He muttered, "Hey, is there a lot of slaughter in this broken place? It tastes so good." The light was too dark, and the feeling of being sleepy was exciting, so he didn't think much about it, but his butt was rushing towards the exit. Kobayashi followed behind, looking at his thoughts of beating, and felt a little confused in his heart, so he could only stop complaining. After the door of the floor opened with a squeak, Fei Miao and I crawled back to the ground with our gray faces. Xiang diamonds and from the broken window, the shadows pull the eldest, and there is a musty smell in the hall, which makes people's neck buzz. Fat Miao shook her hair, straightened her back, and slapped her claws, and posed a war god. "Humph, I am a big man who has come back to the world. Don't you kneel down to beg for mercy in this broken place? Kobayashi, be ready to bow your head in worship." I rolled my eyes, wiped the soil from my face, and muttered, "Sir, don't be busy playing with me first. It's really hard to say who is willing to be with me." Before I finished speaking, a heavy stomp sound suddenly came from the outside, and several low-pitched conversations continued to fly in. "That thing is absolutely. You can't. Otherwise, you'll wake up if you're sleeping." My heart skipped a beat and I grabbed Fat Meow's little voice and said, "Don't be so sad, someone is coming." As a result, my ears moved, and my eyes were as bright as a searchlight. "Oh? Is there a bad egg? So great, I'm so proud, I'm giving them a set of Meow-style ring punches." I hadn't come yet, but it had jumped to the window and looked at it. I saw a group of men in black surrounded outside the Taoist temple, holding weapons, and mysteriously staring around. Fat Miao turned her head and grinned. "Little scene. Watching this guy perform, they are so scared to find their teeth." After saying that, he jumped to the center of the hall, danced with his hands and brought the sound effect. "Ha! Drink! This guy cuts the mountains and rivers with one claw. Do you guys with black cloth faces want to play ninjas? Unfortunately, I don't have me." It looked like a street seller, and I yelled in my heart, "Brother, are you trying to attract hatred or to commit suicide?" Sure enough, the man in black heard a stern horse gathering, and one growled, "Who is there? Catch the alive." Another voice was retorted, "Don't come, you should be low on your head." Hey, this internal contradiction is quite obvious. I took the trouble to the back of the pillar, held my breath and listened secretly, and I heard a cold mouth, "If you can't find that thing again, you can't afford to hold it." My brain buzzed and thought to myself, what's it? Does it have anything to do with those ghost talismans below? But if you want to hear it carefully, the helper has been attracted by Fei Miao's performance and has come to the main hall. "Hey! Are you lost in this group of black fish? Do you want me to guide you directly to Huangquan?" Fat Miao jumped and mocked her, not treating herself as an outsider at all. I hid in the dark and looked at it, complaining in my heart, why don't this cat have the word fear? If I were it, I would have dug a hole and buried myself. But I also took this opportunity to hear more traces. Forget it, remember it first and wait until it is safe before asking for a question that I deserve to beat the cat. The man in black was obviously furious and rushed into the hall. I slid to the door of the backyard and slapped Fat Miao. "Sir, retreat quickly. If you jump down, you will become a target." Fat Miao glanced at me, flicked her tail, and even put on a styling in a singular manner. Kobayashi, the big man never retreats. But in order to protect you, I will make it difficult to get there. After saying that, he rushed over, but halfway through a foot, he kicked over a broken incense pot in the backyard. There was a loud bang sound, and the dust was everywhere, and the whole yard instantly turned into a smoke scene. I was so angry that I coughed up, and I rushed out and said, "Sir, you are so brave, the dust is almost buried. Can you leave some way to live for the smaller ones?" Fat Miao looked proud and ran around and bragged, "What's the matter? I'm a great man's magic trick, and I can hold my head up when the sky falls. When the fragrance falls, they can only eat ashes. Run, I'm a great man to cover you." I rolled my eyes in my heart. Cover me? You should clean your gray hair first. The man in black behind him was getting closer and closer. We rushed into the backyard, ramming around, seeing that there was no way to go, and suddenly saw a black dry well in the corner. I gritted my teeth and pointed to the wellhead and said, "Jump down and hide." Fat Miao looked down and Lima was furious. "What? How can my perfect hair get so dirty? I can't help it." I got started directly, pushed it down, and jumped in. "Stop talking, it's still a fatal image, pick it yourself." The bottom of the well was damp and cold, and the space was so narrow that it was free to turn around. We held together, reluctantly clutching the wellhead with the weeds, and putting the whisper of the man in black on the head. It just seemed like I ran to this place. Search. The fat cat was beside me, humming in a low voice, "How ugly, this ghost place is moist, my hair is about to be wiped out." I would have used my domineering atmosphere to directly shock them. I smiled and complained in a low voice, "Come on, sir, your domineering atmosphere almost sent us to heaven. Now it is more peaceful than anything else." As a result, the voice fell, and his foot slipped down, and the cat almost fell into a flat sand and fell geese. Fortunately, I quickly helped me. Who knew that this goods were stunned for a moment, and actually snorted in a low voice, "Humph, kid, you have some eyesight, I will remember you for your merits." I still couldn't help but say sourly, "Okay, sir, don't slide down and smash me to death, we'll thank God." While being embarrassed, Fei Miao was bored and scraping the moss on the well wall with her claws. She suddenly scraped out a small piece of stone with some strange symbols engraved on it, which looked a bit similar to those in the floor. He muttered, "Is this broken well still a slot? I'm so savoring." After saying that, he threw the stone sliver directly to the side. I glanced at it and didn't think much. I just hoped that the top would help me leave early, otherwise I would take it down. I was afraid that I would really turn into a fish in the well and would never fall for it even if I turned over. Just as I relaxed my breath, a low voice suddenly came from the bottom of the well, as if there was something. I moved for a moment. The sensation at the bottom of the well was not long after. The fat thirsty began to slap the wet wall of the well with its claws impatiently. The sound was like a drum, which made my ears buzz. I collapsed beside me, my nose rolled my eyes by the strange smell of soil and moss, and my heart yelled, "Brother, are you trying to start an underground party and ask the man in black to come back to dance?" Just as I was about to open my mouth to calm him down, a slight click sound suddenly came from the cold air, as if something was moving, and we stiffened at the same time, our eyes flashing toward the darker place at the bottom of the well. "What's the silence?" I muttered in a low voice, feeling my neck squished like ice blocks were stuffed. The fat Miao shook his ears, and he stood up and took the big shot into the posture of the boss, and his tail was as bright as the skyline. "Humph, the small sound of the area, dare to put big cards in front of me? Look at me going to give it a lesson." After speaking, he shook forward with small steps, and he still said to himself, "This Miao has no enemy in footwork. I have to kneel down when the world is in contact with me. What can this breaking well do to me? Hey, sir, don't be bothered." I was so anxious that my throat was almost broken. I reached out to grab it, but the pressure was not heard. I raised my claws and stepped on a raised stone. As a result, with a click, the bottom of the well was shaking like a crunch, and the ground cracked directly. We couldn't even scream, so we fell down like we were falling freely. I hurriedly grabbed Fat Miao's hair in the air, and shouted in my mouth, "Why are you so little? What's wrong with stepping on it? You have to step on it." The fat cat was still snatched by me, and shouted, "Let the claws. I won't be fighting with you, this bird. When I land, I will kick this broken place with one foot." Before I finished speaking, with a bang, we smashed into a deeper underground passage, and my eyes were so shattered. "Sir, look at the good things you did." I panted like a dog, pointing at the surroundings. "Are we running for life? Why did we fall into this place where there is a problem at first glance?" The fat meow shook the soil on his body and held his back hard. "Shake a fart. I'm not sure about it. This iron must be a secret passage to the treasure. The sacrificial forum is a big Easter egg. Go up and touch it." After saying that, he ignored me, jumped to the center of the sacrificial forum in 3 or 2 steps, looked left and right at a cracked stone slab, and stretched his claws and slapped. "Hey, is this thing hidden? I'll probably win the prize if I scratch it. You can save it." I was so scared that my legs were soft. I thought about it, but I was one step late. When the claws slapped, the stone slab sank clicked, and the entire passage began to shake in an instant, and the sound of the low bird turned into a harsh swaying, as if something was about to climb out. The cracks on the fortress exuded a little strange light, and a huge shadow suddenly appeared. My heart tightened and my teeth were almost biting. The fat cat was so excited that its tail was shaking like a rush. "Ha, did you see it? This cat is indeed the Cat King of Heaven. The special effects have been put into use. Come and bow down. Kneel down and bow to you. Run." I grabbed it, but it became more and more fierce, and the stones around began to fall down. I glanced at a small copper elbow on the fort. Why did the symbol engraved on it look so familiar? Unfortunately, there is no need to look at the pressure in detail, so you can only save your life first and be tight. There was a huge sound on the top of the passage, and the big stone fell down. I pushed the fat cat and rolled up. "Sir, if you don't run away, it's really a choice for a bun." The fat cat was pushed by me, and the duck was still hard on his mouth. "Stop talking, this cat is going to prevent it from hitting the ring. Who dares to move me? Come on, try it." As soon as the words came out, a small stone hit my arm without bias, and I was inhaling in pain. This carton was stunned for a moment, with a panic flashing in his eyes, and his paws rushed to help me pull out the debris, muttering in a low voice, "Humph, you're leaving. I don't want to drag a dead body to run away." My heart felt hot, but my mouth was still sour. "Come on, sir, are you afraid you can't pick it alone?" As I was about to be in a hurry, another wave of falling rocks hit my face and hit me. I gritted my teeth and held it back and moved to the side. The fat cat flicked his tail and began to run around in full circle. He shouted, "Look, my cat's tail is powered by its own power to power these garbage stones. Kobayashi, keep up with my pace." My eyes twitched and I thought to myself, are you going to power or perform street dance? Finally, I saw a narrow slut in front of me. We crawled over with my belt, but it was too silent. The fat cat still ran and howled, "I'm the world is invincible." The sound was heard near the wellhead, and the dust that was shattered could be used as a smoke. As soon as I took a breath, I heard the rapid pace from afar. The man in black roared and disappeared, at the way. "Grab them." My heart was sweating in my head, and I heard a low voice, "Sir, you shouted too hard in this voice, and you directly broadcast the enemy." The fat cat shook its tail and said nothing. "What are you afraid of?" "I am worried that there is no fight, they will be sent to the door." "Let's go, Kobayashi, show off the big ones with me, beat them into brain fans." I rolled my eyes, grabbed it and drew it deep into the narrow mat, and complained wildly in my heart, "Show off? I just want to show off how to survive." The chasing steps behind me are getting closer and closer, and the road ahead is so dark that I can't see my fingers. There is really a pit in front and a knife behind me. I was finally dragged into the water by this cat who was trying to death. Just as the thunder fat cat and I climbed into the depths of the narrow slot, the man in black behind us was getting closer and closer, like a urging ghost. The ground in the passage was shaking as if it was opening a party, and there was a pungent and strange smell in the air, which made my eyes almost burst out. I covered my nose, my arms hurt as if I was being crushed by a lock, and my breath was like an old fan. Sir, why is there toxicity in this broken place? Have we fallen into the chemical factory or what? The fat thunder cat shook his tail and faced a big shot. Are you panic? This cat has a purge device, and I have to go around if I see this little poison. That's how it said. His eyes narrowed into a tiny, which was obviously too stunning. Suddenly, a small stone slammed down from the top, and I shook my neck in a panic. As a result, the claws stretched out and helped me to hold the stone wall beside me that was about to be slammed, and my mouth was still hard. Humph, I'm just a quick hand, don't think I'm covering you. I coughed so hard that I looked at the protected shoulders. The corners of my mouth were pulled unconsciously, and I couldn't help but feel sore. Come on, sir, if you don't take your claws back, you're probably going to be turned into stone carvings exhibits. As I was lying, my poisonous air became more and more heavy, my brain was sluggish, and my legs were as soft as if I stepped on cotton. When the fat cat saw that it was not in opposition, its tail was swelling up and began to fan the wind. Look, this great technique of this move can blow poisonous air into outer space. Is your tail a fan or a helicopter spiral? I reluctantly complained. As a result, he fanned more vigorously. Unexpectedly, his tail accidentally hooked the crack on the stone wall. The gap leaked and his fan actually shaved a small dragon's wind. The poisonous air was blown away a little, and I could always take a breath. But the wind was too low, and even the men in black next to me were rolled upside down. One of them was thrown into the collapsed stone pit, making my head numb with a cry. Ha ha! Did you see it? As soon as this cat comes out, all the cats in the world have to shake 3 times. The fat cat thunderously shook his tail, almost blowing himself away. I wiped my cold sweat and passed a bunch of troughs in my brain. Sir, if you fan it down, we are afraid we will go to heaven together to be a good ball. But seriously, although this operation was ridiculous, it really made the men in black calm for a while. The distance was filled with a group of steps, and they were probably confused by this inexplicable dragon roll. Taking advantage of my short and safe condition, I leaned against the stone wall and gasped, my eyes swept over the dim surrounding environment. Just now, the wind seemed to scrape off a thick layer of moss on the stone wall, revealing a small piece of carving underneath, looking like a half-human and half-black monster. I muttered, why are there any wall paintings in this broken place? I'll have the same painting style as you, sir. Unfortunately, the light is too dark and the situation is urgent, so I don't have time to take a look. Stop talking, get tight. Pigeon Fat Cat patted me with his claws and urged, I don't want to be a fossil in this broken place. I gritted my teeth and stood up, holding the stone wall with my hand, touching a few strange marks inadvertently. This pattern is similar to what I saw on the forest air copper shavings before. My heart skipped a beat and I muttered in a low voice, these symbols are exactly the same as those on the sacrificial forum. Sir, are you really the cat chosen by heaven, right? The heaven chooses cat emperor, that's a must. Fat Miao's ears trembled, and he looked as if it were natural, and he didn't forget to fill his knife. You kids' eyes finally opened, it's worth me to take you flying. I rolled my eyes and flashed a picture in my brain, take me flying? Are you always going to blow me into a cannon? But when I say that, this symbol is indeed a bit evil. Is it difficult to make the sacrificial not a Tibetan area, but a sealing device? Just as Usi was thinking, a hard thing suddenly kicked a hard thing on his foot. When he looked down, he saw that it was a piece of fragment, as if it was just when the man in black was just rolled away. The symbols engraved on the top and the ones on the stone wall are all the way. I picked it up and looked closer, wondering, why are these people chasing us? You can't just be attracted to Fat Miao's fur and want to be a cat's fur, right? Hey, Kobayashi, what are you rubbing there? If you want to dig a treasure, you won't look at the scene. The fat Thunderbolt came over, looked down at the fragments, and hummed indifferently, Tisk, just break the trolls, have the ability to hide a fish can. Go quickly, don't drag your back legs. Who is the one who drags his back legs? I stuffed the pieces, and I couldn't help but say, if you didn't have to show off your operations, would we be trapped? But when I said, I felt uneasy in my heart holding the pieces in my hand. The more I looked at this place, the less it was. The low voice began to rise again, as if something was getting ready to move in the dark. The fat cat was full of face, and his claws were plucked on the ground for 2 times, and he still bragged, I heard it well, as soon as I am mad, I have to kneel down for all the troubles. I will set my goal and directly push it out of the heavy edge. My mouth twitched, and 1,000 grooves appeared in my brain. Exit the heavy edge? I'm afraid I'm not going to get into the next big pit. My arm still hurts so much that although the poison has dissipated, the air is still so frustrating that it makes people feel breathless. The roar of the man in black is on the horizon at a distance, and it is estimated that they will be killed again soon. I gritted my teeth and grabbed Fei Miao's tail. Sir, don't rush to show off first. Will we be able to find a way to go? Go? This word is not in this dictionary. He shook my hand and his tail began to circle again, but, for your little kid's sake, I will force me to take you flying. After speaking, he opened his short legs and explored the way forward, and I could only keep up with me. My heart was as if I had knocked over the tuning bottle. This cat's mouth is sacrificing, but it doesn't fall off the chain when it's in the key. Wait, why am I thinking about these? The passage was as dark as a huge mouth that swallowed everything, and the low voice seemed to be invisible, as if some ancient existence was in a low voice. The master who was called the Cat King was still muttering about the achievements of hard work, but I only felt that the fragments in my hand were burning like charcoal. Just after I and Fei Miao and I were fumbled around the narrow slot, we accidentally broke into a secret cave. Compared to the broken passage that can kill people, the air here can barely make people breathe. Although it is still a little bit frustrating, at least I won't send me directly to the west. There is a small piece of shining moss on the cave wall, and the faint green light shines around like a haunted house experience museum, which is inexplicably a little relieved. My legs were as soft as my face, and I sat on the ground, panting wildly against the stone wall, feeling like I was almost tired. Tisk, look at your sanity. This meow has been running for so long, and my hair has not fallen off. The Fei Miao shook her tail, her short legs were as fast as the king of the mountain patrol, and she still kept stabbing her knife. You kid, don't practice your physical strength anymore, I won't cover you next time. Cover me? Sir, are you slapping me with that tail just now? I rolled my eyes and pressed my arms with my hands, so the pain was so cold. My brain was full of cat-style croakers that had just left the scene. The operation of this goods made me feel almost stopped. Now I think about it, I was still sweating. If I were really blown away, I would probably just fly in the air in the next village. The Fei Miao heard me open, my ears trembled, and Lemma jumped to the shiny moss in dissatisfaction, raised his paws, and began to draw circles on the ground. Stop talking. This is the secret of the Cat Emperor now, so you can't help but be worried. Look, this is the defensive boundary in the passage. It said, it's a scattered way to pull it away. As a result, halfway through the painting, a few small stones suddenly sounded off at the top of the hole, and the dust filled my face. Ahem. Sir, why did you put the ceiling down in this boundary? If you continue painting, we are afraid we will be smashed into a meaty pie. I slapped my hand and couldn't help but complain, and I laughed so hard in my heart. Every time I want to wear a slut, I feel like I'm going to be a mess in the end, just a mobile dismantling team. What's the matter? This is called shaking the world, I did it on purpose. The Fei Miao the scene, her tail was as swaying as a flagpole, and she also pretended to be low and looked at the landslide. As a result, I didn't look tight, and there was a blurry text under the exposed stone wall. The symbols were twisted and engraved in a mold with the pattern on the fragment on my hand. I was stunned for a moment, and hurriedly took out the fragments to approach the counter. The green light reflected the signs and the signs flashed and darkened. The more I looked, the more I felt that they were not in opposition. These symbols are exactly the same as fragments. Could it be that there is something that cannot be touched? I muttered in a low voice, and my heart felt as if it was knocked hard by something, and I was so panicked. There were also similar things on the copper calves on the sacrificial for the past. Isn't there really any evil secrets in this place? A thing that can't be touched? It sounds quite mysterious. Fat Meow came over and patted my shoulder with his claws. He said, but I guess it's probably a broken cellar. At most, I'll hide a few packages of past snacks. Don't scare yourself. Snacks? Sir, are there anything else in your brain besides eating? I glared at him without saying a word, lowered my head and continued to study the text. But while I was paying attention, a low sound came from the depths of the cave, like a drum from afar, knocking on my heart one after another, accompanied by the slight movement of the cave wall, which made my back feel tight. Did you hear it? This sound becomes more and more obvious. Is there another monster going to pop up, right? The Fat Meow's ears shook, and he heard the movement on the side of the dressing, and then hummed indifferently, "TSK, Kobayashi, you are too young." This is clearly the protest that this Meow has a stomachache. I'll find some food to stop. After speaking, his claws began to scatter the mossy again, as if he really planned to dig out something. As a result, I accidentally took out a small black stone from the gap in the rock wall, which was so smooth that it was not as natural. He glanced at him with disgust and threw it directly to the side. Bah, this broken thing is not worthy of even the grinding stone. I lowered my head and glanced at the stone. I felt my heart irritated and quietly lifted it up and stuffed it into it. It's not heavy anyway, there are many souvenirs. What are the key props of Wani? I don't want to miss the opportunity to get rich. Hey, Xiaolin, why are you fucking me there? Want to embezzle the baby? Fat Meow glanced at me, her eyes turning like a detective. No. I'm just moving my muscles and bones so that I won't drag your legs back when I'll hold you down. I stood up and held my hand stupidly, feeling secretly happy in my heart. No matter how sharp the eyes are, I can't find the small movements I'm doing, right? Humph, you know what you know. He shook his tail and suddenly moved, gently swept the wound on my arm with the tip of his tail. It seemed a bit hesitant, and said hard on his lips, "Humph, I don't want to drag a half-crush, so I'll help me get better." I was stunned for a moment, watching the furry tail swept over, my heart suddenly warmed up, and I muttered in a low voice, "Thank you, sir." The sound was so small that it was buzzing with mosquitoes, but I knew I must have heard of this, because its ears were shaking like electric little horses. Stop being disgusting. I don't want to eat this. The fat cat was so arrogant, but his tail was still shrunk back in a fair manner. At this moment, the low geese sounded up again, which was clearer than before, like an old clock, and the sound knocked people nervous. My fingers clenched the fragments without thinking, and my brain became numb. There is something hidden here and here. Is it hard to accompany this cat emperor to the Thunder area? Why did I take on such a cheating mission? I wouldn't have been in harmony if I had known it. My small body doesn't look like a material that can penetrate the tiger's den. Just when the Thunder Fat Cat's furry tail swept over my arm and he was still dying of his mouth, the low sound of the bird deep in the cave suddenly exploded, like a big bay next door was knocking on the iron. Every sound was more and more urgent, which made my heart almost pop out of my chest. Then, the rustling stone chips from the top slid down, and the small stones smashed down like rain, making my face full of dust, and coughed like the late stage of the lung nucleation. Hey, sir, you won't be yelling in your stomach again, right? I'll give you some advice. I was so sniffing that my eyes were lit up, and my hands slapped my head off the dust, and my heart was so panicked that I had stepped on the thunder. This broken place is originally an evil gate. If it collapses, I am afraid it will directly turn into an underground fossil. Nonsense. This is clearly the world that is shocked by my cat's might, and it is taking the initiative to make the road. The fat cat's ears shook, and he held his big-tailed wolf hard, and pointed to the stone wall in front of him. Look, can the small stone head in the district dare to take the way? My cat's secret art divides mountains and seas. After speaking, his tail suddenly swung, and a violent wind rose up, and he rushed straight into the stone wall and left. Then what? The wind was very fierce, so fierce that it directly blows itself into a walking thorn. My eyes were slim as the cargo turned 3.5 circles in place, and finally fell to the ground with a bang, and the hole was shaken and a pile of gravel fell. It directly came to a small landslide, trapping us in a smaller broken space. The air was as hot as a sauna, and the green light reflected the surroundings. "Sir, is your secret to splitting mountains and seas or breaking up the house?" My face is almost blown into a desert sculpture. I rolled my eyes with anger, and my hands desperately snatched a big rock beside me, for fear that it would fall down and bloom in my brain. The fat meow got up and shook the soil, and said with a stubborn mouth, "Cough, a little mistake. This is called breaking first and then standing." This meow deliberately exploded the barrier to open your eyes. As he said, his claws were pointed at it casually, and I looked at it. Hey, there was something really. An old skeleton was exposed in the landslide, and a broken roll was scattered beside it, which looked like it had been gnawed by a cyst for hundreds of years. I carefully rolled over, shaking my hands, and lifted the roll, and glanced at it in the green light. The symbol on it looked like the fragments and holes in the walls. It was crooked and twisted, and it was so evil that it was wobbly. These symbols cannot be irrelevant to He Jing, right? Can't they really be so unpredictable? I muttered in a small voice, and my heart sank, as if I had fallen into an ice cave in winter, and I couldn't even warm up no matter how hard I kept it. "What are you teaching?" "It sounds like a marketing group selling fake health products." Fat Meow came over and patted my shoulder with his paws. The man said with a singular voice, "Don't be afraid of yourself, I guess. This is the ancient notes, and at most I will remember the past dishes." After saying that, he licked his mouth, as if he really started to fantasize about eating. I glared at him without saying a word. "Sir, can your brain be decorated with something besides eating it? If you don't care, we are afraid we will become the neighborhood of this skeleton brother." As he was complaining, the fat meow suddenly rolled up a corner of the roll with his tail and stuffed it to my hand. "Okay, don't be fooled. This meow helps you to put away the ropes, find the exit quickly, don't drag the back legs." He was poisonous, but he was quite considerate when he was acting. I was stunned for a moment, my heart was a little warm, but I couldn't help but reply, "Thank you, sir, remember to not scatter yourself next time." "Humph, don't be fooled." Fat Meow shook me, and the bottom of her eyes flashed and recognized it. At this moment, I noticed a small cloth strip next to the bone, with a blurred pattern on it, like a mark. I lifted it up with my hands and stuffed it in, hoping to study it later. Fat Meow glanced at it and snorted disdainfully, "It's better to give this rag to me." I ignored it and looked around and finally found a crack that was narrow enough to be separated in the gaps of the stone wall. A faint light came from the outside, which looked like a road leading out. But the problem is that the low-headed voice is closer, and there are still a few vague low words, like a group of people chanting mantras, which makes my back swell. Outside, someone is muttering, "TSK, how many little guys dare to whine in front of me? Wait until I get out of the hole, teach them how to see the might of the cat emperor." The fat meow's ears shook, and he pretended to be calm and pressed to me, but his tail quietly slammed my arm and pushed me lightly. "Go away, I don't want to be here for you." "Sir, why are you so powerful to push me like this? You don't care if you don't care?" I couldn't help laughing, but I knew in my heart that this was actually very tight. After wiped the cold sweat, I murmured in my heart, "Does these low words have anything to do with the symbols on the fragments? If I really encounter the black psychic, can my life be saved?" Looking at the crack again, the low words outside were interrupted and I couldn't hear them clearly at all, but this sequence sacrificially made my brain produce a horror movie. He glanced at the fragments in his hand, and suddenly felt that this thing was burning, as if reminding me that there was no good day ahead. I gritted my teeth and slowly moved over with the fast fat cat. No matter what he is outside, it is definitely not a solution to stay here and die. But, what is this black purity sect doing? Why do I have a premonition? This pit is deeper than a rock cave. I am afraid that it will be dragged into this cat and will not be revenge. Finally, I came out from the crack that was as narrow as chopsticks. I and Fat Meow and I fell into a very fierce place. The air was so cold that it dripped straight into the bones. When my body was so intense that my hair stood up. The surrounding stone walls are full of crooked symbols, and the green light reflects the heart. The sound of the low words is like a ghost muttering in the ears, becoming clearer and clearer. I lowered my head and looked at it. This broken place looked like an underground sacrificial fortress. There was a broken stone platform in the center, emitting an indescribable evil smell. "Hey, sir, can we stop playing mischief again? This place is not a good place at first glance, don't get mad again." I lowered my throat, holding the tail of the thunder fat cat, for fear that this goods would be irrelevant. The fat meow shook his ears and threw it off me disdainfully. "TSK, this meow is the reincarnation of the cat emperor. Who can this small scene be scared? Look, these little guys will flatten them in minutes." After saying that, he stepped forward with great force and raised his paws, and it was really a bit like a model. As a result, the next second, a crisp sound of click sounded, and the fat meow stepped on a raised stone slab. My hand shook, almost grasping the corner of the wall. My eyes swayed as the ground began to shake. A dark red light column swooshed from the sky from the stone platform, so bright that it was as bright as a concert light, exposing our location clearly. The low voice instantly turned into a clear chant of mantras, and several men in black robe appeared from the shadows around him, holding strange magic weapons in their hands, and it was obvious that they were not here to invite guests to have a meal. "Humph, do you know that this cat emperor is the reincarnation of these little guys? This beam of light was clearly lit up to welcome this cat, so I can't kneel down quickly." The fat cat thrust his neck, and his tail was as if he was a finger stick. I heard the corners of my mouth twitching, thinking, "Brother, can you use this skill in your mouth? Now is not the time to act in ancient dramas." The man in the black robe sneered, and his voice was as loud as an old gun. "Person chosen by heaven? Humph, you are just a mistaken slut, but since you see the light pillar, you will be unable to survive. On the day when the ancient god wakes up, will he allow outsiders to interfere?" I felt nervous. Ancient god? Wake up? How does this movie sound like a horror movie? I secretly glanced at the token hanging between my waist. The pattern on the top looked a bit like the rag in my eyes, and I thought I was afraid it was another trick. "Hey, brother, I'm fine. What an ancient god, the new god, let's talk about it. Maybe my cat can help you get more trouble." I smiled and wanted to delay time, so I quietly pulled Fat Meow back. As a result, the fat cat was not in love and slapped his paws. "Stop talking. This cat is enough, how can you get your hands on the slightest?" The voice fell, and the man in black robe looked cold and ordered directly, "Killing without forgiveness." "Run, sir. I can't do anything to say." I grabbed the thunder fat meow and ran my legs to the passage on the sacrificial forum. The pursuers behind were getting closer and closer, and the road ahead was still a narrow path like a maze. The gravel on both sides kept falling down, smashing me all over. As I ran, I suddenly rushed to the car and pointed to the road ahead and shouted, "Wait, sir, stop touching things again." But one step late, Fei Miao's claws had already photographed a rune on the wall, and only heard a stop sound. The whole magic shot emitted a violent energy like a short circuit, directly lifting the man in the black robe behind for a few meters away. "Look, this meow is such a cow. Do you dare to challenge the cat emperor in the area?" The fat thunder cat shook his hair proudly, but the next second, the ground began to shake violently, and the whole sacrificial squeak was about to collapse. I rolled my eyes in anger. "You damn! You want to bury us into fossils?" Sure enough, the stones on the ceiling smashed down, and the gravel fell down with our brains. We were forced to death, blocked from the front and back. I gasped. My back was covered with a cold stone wall, my legs were so soft that I couldn't stand, my heart was pounding, as if I was about to jump out of my chest. When he looked down, a hole was cut from the fat meow's tail was gravel, and blood was poured out, looking quite frustrating. I gritted my teeth, removed my coat and tore it into cloth, squatted down and wrapped it in it, urging me, "Hurry up, there's no time, if I don't move, I really have to bury this." I couldn't help but wonder, why am I so damn? But looking at its broken tail, the brain flashed like it had previously held the gravel, but still couldn't help but move. The fat pike was stunned for a moment, his ears drooped, and he snorted in a low voice, remember, I will have to give you a claw next time." The little eyes glanced at me, and it was a bit warm. I felt a little soft in my heart, but I immediately complained, "Wake up, Kobayashi. What feelings do you have for a fat cat? Now the key point is to survive." Just as Usi was thinking, there was another huge wave, and the surrounding stone walls were cracking. I hurriedly grabbed the pile of gravels falling on my body. Suddenly I touched a small black stone on the ground, and some strange patterns were carved on it, which was different from the one on the scroll, but I didn't have the time to look at it in detail. I stuffed it into my pocket with my hands, thinking to think about it later. Just as I was about to pull Fat Miao to find a gap to make a diamond, the man in the black robe behind me actually got up again, with the magic weapon in my hand flashing red light and growling, "You can't escape. I have to try it if I can't escape. Sir, hurry up, don't wait for me to ask you for tea." I gritted my teeth and pushed the thunder fat cat, but the ground under my feet had begun to collapse. I only had time to grab its tail, and the sound of my ears was heard, and the whole person was swallowed by the darkness. Just as Pigeon Fat Meow and I were swallowed by the darkness, the ground under our feet collapsed directly like a tofu project, and the sound of our ears whizzed, and the whole person was planting down like a jumping machine. I grabbed Fat Meow's tail desperately and burst into tears. Why is this broken place more exciting than my double 11-shot order? With a bang, we slammed hard into a cold and damp cave. Our butts hurt like we were falling. There was a musty smell in the air, which made my eyes almost fall. "Hey, sir, can you stop taking me to play such a high-risk game? I can't afford to lose my life." I rubbed my waist and climbed up, glanced at the thunder fat cat next to me. This carton could still shake my hair and lick my paws calmly. "Humph, this cat is born with divine power, what's this little thing? But you are so worried about it like a foot." I rolled my eyes, and my brain was full of complaints. "Okay, cat, you are awesome, don't call me to help you later." Just as I was about to write a few more sentences, I suddenly heard a low voice from the surroundings, like a ghost movie dubbing. I looked up and said, "Be good, this place is simply an underground cult sect." In the huge cave, the stone walls were covered with dark red crystals, as flashed like warning lights. Dozens of black-robed believers surrounded Adafa in the center, and their air was so stressed by their evil spirits that they could not breathe. The energy fluctuated in the center of the Dharma room and the ground was shaking slightly, and my calves were almost cramped. "Hey, sir, let's be humble, don't make trouble again." Before he finished speaking, the fat thunder cat jumped onto a big stone head, his chest thrust, and shouted loudly, "This cat is the designated spokesperson for the ancient god. You guys, don't stop this breaking ceremony quickly to welcome this cat to surrender." The fight, which was a real disposal of a copycat traffic star. I covered my face directly, my heart trembled like a drum, and my chest was numb, and my brain wailed, "Brother, do you think we are too long?" Sure enough, the man in black robe turned his head, his eyes were the same as those of his mentally retarded, but the energy of the Dharmakaya suddenly trembled and was actually a little confused by it. A red light exploded, overturning several believers to the ground. "Look, this cat is such a cow. Ancient gods have to give face." The fat cat shook his tail proudly. I was sweating so anxious that I pulled it and hid the cow's hairline. "This is blowing up his lair, and we will kill us later." Sure enough, after the man in the black robe got up, a gang like a tall priest walked out, holding a strange-shaped short stick in his hand. The stone on the stick was shining, which looked a bit like the small black stone in my pocket. Unfortunately, the scene was too annoying, and I didn't take a look at it carefully. He snorted coldly, "I don't know how to be bad, but I dare to betray things. Let me die. Run. Sir, the guns are over, retreat quickly." I grabbed Fei Miao and took advantage of the chaos around the Dharma realm, and lowered my head toward a small gap next to me. I ran around and took out the black pebbles from my pocket. I didn't know what was wrong. I threw them into the center of the mage and heard a pop sound. The pebbles got stuck in a groove. The entire mage shook violently like a power supply being cut off. The sharp sound of birds spread across the cave. The red light was as dazzling as a blast of smoke, and the cracks on the ground were swelling wildly. "Fuck it well, Kobayashi. I said you are still useful." Fat Meow said to me, but I just wanted to cry. It's useful, this is really piercing the sky. The priest roared, catch them. The sport cannot be stopped. The swaying sound of the pursuers behind us became closer and closer. Fei Miao and I climbed into a narrow passage. The stone walls on both sides were cold and rough. Occasionally, gravel fell down, almost opening the pouch for my brain. Halfway through the run, the road ahead was blocked, and the sound of chasing from behind was approaching. I leaned against the wall and gasped. My legs were as soft as cotton candy. When he looked down, the wound on the fat cat's tail was cracked again, and the blood ticked down. I gritted my teeth, tore the cloth hard with my sleeve and wrapped it. My hands were shaking like a storm, and my brain was full of this stuff. Sir, can you calm down? I'm almost gone for my life, and I'll give you a nanny. But seeing his drooping ears, I felt that I didn't care. The fat pike was stunned for a moment and hummed in a low voice, Humph, you are useful, don't expect me to express your gratitude. The little eyes glanced at me, and it actually meant to be a little warm. My heart was so excited, but I immediately laughed at myself. Wake up, Lin Xiaolin. What are you talking about, a fat cat? The point now is to survive. Just as Uxi's mind was about, the man in black robe had already chased him to the entrance of the passage, and the magic tool in his hand was flashing red, and it seemed that he could roast us at any time. I was squeezing back to back in front of the fat cat, my hands tremblingly lifting the sharp stones on the ground, and shouted loudly, come on. I can't even protect this fat cat, can I still expect to go out alive? As a result, my throat was almost shouting. TSK, don't show off your strength. I don't care about your protection. But, if you hear you this time, find the way. The fat meow didn't say anything, but her claws had already begun to pull out the pile of gravels next to her, as if she was cooperating with me to find an exit. I bit my teeth tightly and pushed the big stone on my body. My fingers were bleeding and I couldn't help but just want to escape from this ghost place. The sound of the steps behind me was getting closer and closer. My heartbeat was as fast as a fan with enough horsepower. I could only push forward desperately. I glanced at the corner of my eyes and saw a glimmer of light from the passage, and I didn't know if it was a way out or another absolute situation. Just as Pilly of Fat Meow and I were igniting a hope of running for life with the faint light in the passage, the sound of the black purr behind us was approaching like thunder, which made my calves tremble. I bit my teeth tightly, pulled Fei Miao forward, ran and shouted, Sir, don't be stunned, run. If you don't move, we will become their skewers. Fei Miao limped over and said, this is a strategic shift, do you understand? Who is like you, running like you were kicked? The passage suddenly became wide open, but what greeted us was not a life-saving exit, but an ancient sacrificial that was so magnificent that it could make ghost movies. The stone walls were full of messy runes, which were no different from the children's use of sluts and ducks. There was a low buzzing sound in the air, which made people's chests swell. In the middle of the fort, a piece of obsidian flashes the light of the evil door, and the detachment is the villain's label in the horror movie. As soon as my brain turned, I suddenly remembered the gossip I heard in the market, saying that the ancient sermons had to be started by the core stone, and smashing it would make this broken thing go away. I pointed to the obsidian and said to the fat cat with a small voice, Sir, I have a strong idea. You help me hold on to the nerves, I will knock on that broken stone. Ha! Hold them down? This meow is hurting. The fat meow glared, his tail swaying like a spiral, but the next second it jumped onto a stone head, raised his chest and yelled, Hey, you guys are ugly black robes, and you all have to kneel down when your power comes out. The move was as simple as the anchor selling goods in a village live broadcast. I was so worried that I was hurt and complained wildly in my heart, Brother, are you raising hatred or preparing for a concert? But I have to say that this goods have attracted all the attention of the believers, and the helping people swipe their heads, and the magical tools in their hands are as flashing like neon lights in nightclubs. I took advantage of the trouble to touch the sacrificial priest, my heart beat as fast as a pedal and slapped in a group, and my palms were covered with cold sweat. When I approached obsidian, the light made my eyes almost blind, but I gritted my teeth and lifted the sharp stone on the ground, and for it, it was just a fierce blow. With a bang, the obsidian cracked into slag, and the runes around the sacrificial fort instantly turned off, and the entire space shook like a break. A wave of energy exploded with a bang, overturning the helper to the ground. Several of them fell to their noses and were bleeding, making them more depressed than killing pigs. Fuck well, Kobayashi. I said you were not a pure waste. The fat meow jumped off the stone and shook her tail proudly, but I didn't care at all, because a strong air suddenly burst out from the center of the sacrificial swelling, making us unable to stand firmly, and were directly scratched to the edge of the crack, and was about to fall. I shouted, "Don't show off, grab the sturdy moment. This place is going to explode." As soon as the voice fell, a crazy wind almost blew us into the deep slite. I instinctively rushed over to protect Fei Miao, and a hole was made by gravel on my shoulder, which made me gasp in pain. "TSK, I don't need you to hold it, but the reaction is quite fast." The fat meow's mouth was hard, but her claws gently pulled my hand, as if checking if I had any collars. My heart was inexplicably hot, and I shook my head and threw away this strange feeling, thinking, come on, what am I moving about with a fat cat? Now the point is not to be blown into dried meat by the wind. We crept into a small flat ground beside the crack, and the surrounding soil was flying, and the light was as dark as the power-off network bar. After finally calming down, Fat Meow and I fell so thin that every breath was like sucking sand. I gasped against the cold stone wall. When I looked down, the wound on the fat cat's tail was bleeding again, and it looked particularly silly. I gritted my teeth, tore off the last piece of cloth from my clothes, and trembled with my hands on it, muttering to it, "Sir, can you die less? I'm almost ruined by you, and I have to give you a private doctor." Although my hands were trembling, I still wrapped them as tight as possible, for fear that it would hurt again. Peway Fat Meow was stunned for a moment and hummed, "Humph, you have a hint of your eyes. But don't expect me to express your gratitude." But after saying that, he patted the back of my hand lightly, and his ears trembled, as if he even thought this action was too numb, and he turned over with hum. The little action was so warm that it was not as warm as the usual savage tongue. I couldn't help but pull the corners of my mouth, but I still complained, "Okay, sir, you are such a cold person, you are a complete collapse. Should you be a brother to me next?" As we calmed down around, only a faint light came through the gap above. We were sucking in this narrow crack, very close to it, and heating was entirely due to the heat exhaled by the other party. I complained in a low voice, "If I had known that it would be such a danger with you, I wouldn't have brought you home at the beginning. Now I'm trapped underground and can't even eat soaked noodles. It's so deadly." Although I said this, I was still subconsciously protecting it without letting the small gravel beside me touch the wound. While I was gasping against the stone wall, my hand accidentally touched the small black stone in my pocket. I suddenly remembered the stone slab I saw when the fortress collapsed. The dents on it seemed to be the shape of the stone. At that time, the scene was too uneven and I didn't have the opportunity to look at it in detail. Now, when I think about it, I always think there is something wrong. I will admit that you, immortal, are quite useful." The Fat Meow had a low voice, but she didn't even bother me, but leaned over with her ears hanging down, as if comforting me. I was so calm that I could only breathe. I glanced at the fat cat's drooping ears and somehow pulled the corners of my mouth again. After escaping into this crack for a few minutes, Fei Miao and I were panting like the dog who had run 10 kilometers and had not yet drunk water. The fatigue on our bodies had not yet come. A heavy footstep sound came from afar, muttering and muttering, like the uncle next door snoring in the middle of the night. The air suddenly became more stressful, and the rock walls of the squid were stuck on the back. My heart beat faster as an echo from the crack, which made my brain confused. Did this help the Haging cultist have Radha or something? He caught up with him in less than a minute. "Hey, Xiaolin, don't stick it like a wooden head. Where's the ghost bit in the brain? If you don't move, we will have to become their food." Fat Meow drooped her ears, the wound on her tail was still dripping blood, her mouth was as hard as a steel plate, and her claws were pulsating my legs impatiently. I wiped my cold sweat and looked around. The broken place was as narrow as a train, and the light was so dark that I could only see clearly the life on the other person's face. However, when you twist your head, there is a narrower small passage on the side. Several stones on the top look like they are shaking and can fall down and smash people at any time. My eyes lit up and I said in a low voice, "Sir, I have a trick. Let's lead the helper into this path, then collapse the stone above and directly give them a natural coffin." "Ha! Do you think this Meow is a digger? You can fuck this kind of rough work yourself." Fei Miao rolled her eyes, but her claws had already begun to dig soil on the ground, as if looking for a handy tool. I couldn't help but complain in my heart, "Come on, you, this fat cat, has a bad mouth, and your actions are more aggressive than mine. Stop talking, aren't you claiming that your spirit is against the will of heaven? I'm stolen from the whole point, and I'm responsible for smashing the stone." I gritted my teeth and crawled towards the entrance of the passage, holding the small stone with a sharp razor in my hand, my heartbeat thumping, as if I was beating a war drum. Fat Meow hummed, closed her eyes and muttered a few words, then a strange growl came out from the depth of the passage, and it sounded like a wild beast yelling, which scared me almost threw away the stone in my hand. "What are your expressions?" "This meow is called a sound illusion, and I am very professional. Those ugly monsters must think that there is a treasure hidden in it, and their butts are coming in." The fat Meow shook her tail and her face was stinky, but no matter how I heard it, I felt that the sound was like the stalking of the hats next door. As expected, the sound of the stomp was not far away, and the helper shouted, "Catch them! The offerings are in it," and rushed over to the small passage. The flashing light of the magical instrument in his hand was as dazzling as the roasting in the night market. I tightened to the top of the passage, pried a large stone head. My arms were sore that I shivered, and cold sweat ticked down. Seeing the black-robed guy getting closer and closer, I gritted my teeth and growled, "Sir, add more oil, they're about to get on the pad." The fat Meow glanced at me, and actually limped to the entrance of the passage. My mouth was roaring again, and I spat at the church, "Come on, I'm here, I'm waiting for you to catch me. Do you think you're too lucky or want to send a live broadcast? Don't stand there and get back quickly." I was so angry that I missed the mother, but my heart was a little stuck. The fat cat was so injured. Every time I jumped, the blood on my tail dripped faster, and I was still dragging it down. Finally, the first believer entered the passage. I used a thunderous thrust to push the stone. With a stop, the whole top collapsed, and the dust was so terrible that people couldn't open their eyes. They buried most of the helpers. I wanted to run away from behind, but was knocked down by gravel, which was even more desirable than killing chickens at the vegetable market. "It's done! Xiaolin, you mortal can really be sent to the scene." Fat Meow jumped back with her wounded legs, saying that she was 3 points and 7 points. But I didn't have time to deal with it, because she just used too much force and slid her hand, and the whole person almost rolled down with Shirtao. Fortunately, Fat Meow grabbed the corner of my clothes and pulled me back, but the wound on his tail was tugged hard, and a large area of it cracked, and blood dripped on the ground, making my eyelids twitch. "Hey, sir, your life is as hard as a steel wire. Why do you always put a knife on me?" I squatted down with a heavy breath, trying to stop the bleeding from it, and my hands were shaking like a chaff. Fat Meow's ears shook and he snorted, "Stop being sneered, I just thought you were numb. Who would open the can for me?" But after saying that, his claws slapped my arm unnaturally, as if he had forgotten or confirmed that I was fine. That action was so awkward. My heart warmed, but I still couldn't help but sigh it, "Come on, your comforting method is more awkward than the hottest mother under my house." After saying that, I lowered my head and tore off the cloth strips on my sleeves, carefully wounding it, and stopped my fingers, and suddenly the sound of the falling stones on the sides suddenly became particularly clear. The passage behind the falling rocks calmed down, leaving us alone in the narrow space, relying on each other to keep warm. I muttered to the side of my bag, "If I had known that it would be such a danger with you, I would have thrown you away and let you find a kin by yourself. This scar of Meow will be the badge of the most powerful warrior in the universe. Remember to write a song to praise me." The fat Meow raised her head, looking squeaky, but the next second her ears drooped, and she softened her voice, Don't kill yourself, otherwise who will I ask for snacks? I almost laughed and thought to myself, brother, you are such a cold person who can't even come back. When I was just putting a trap, I accidentally pulled something out of my pocket. A small black pebbles fell out, rolling into the depths of the cracks, and a particularly crisp sound came out, as if I was hitting a hollow metal thing. The sound did not dissipate in the cracks for a long time, making people feel cold and irritated. I muttered at that time, why can this broken stone still sing? But the situation was urgent and I couldn't take it at all. Now leaning against the rock wall, my brain suddenly had a thought, is there something hidden in this ghost place that cannot be seen? But looking at the half-baked fat cat next to me, I decided to save my life first. But Fei Miao suddenly fell silent and glanced at the depths of the crack, as if she had noticed something was not in opposition. I felt inexplicably nervous. Couldn't this goods really see anything? Finally, I used the falling rock to bury the black pearl monk into a sardine fish can. Pai Fei Miao and I gasped a few thick breaths against the stone wall. The wounds on our bodies were as if we were smashed by iron, but there was still a sound of footsteps behind us, which forced us to harden and drill deep into the crack. The air was as cold as the refrigerator, and it also had a scent of sulfur, making me cough like an old smoker. A low buzzing bird spread far away, as if there was a big guy grinding his teeth underground, and I heard my neck swelling. Hey, Kobayashi, are you sure this ghost place can be opened? Why do I think we are rushing to the ground to get VIP channel? The fat meow limped and followed behind, the rag on her tail was almost covered in blood, and she still had the slightest lingering on her mouth. Close your mouth, sir, you can laugh and cry in the direction of the road. You can follow me obediently. I gritted my teeth and glanced at him. The light of the flashlight shook on the wall of the cave, reflecting a strange dark red color, like a ghost field. Just as I was about to make another sentence, a huge underground cave suddenly opened in front of me, and the air was so heavy that it was like a layer of iron plates, which made my lungs almost explode. Before I could pass the divination, a black-robed figure slowly floated up from the center of the cave, holding a green magic weapon in my hand, and revolved like an uncle who was selling shining sticks in the night market. The guy muttered a few words in a low voice, and the shadow under his feet instantly swelled, turning into a shadow monster 3-story high. The roaring sound made my ears buzz. I was furious. What is this thing? Godzilla came to visit? His calves were shaking so hard that he subconsciously stepped back. When he turned his head, he saw that the fat cat actually collapsed into a group, his claws shaking like a squid. Hey, sir, aren't you bragging about being the strongest warrior in the universe? What's the point of shrinking into a ball now? The two husky next door are better than you. I was so anxious that I pulled it, trying to drag it behind the stone beside me to hide, but this fat cat was so heavy that it was as cement as it was, and it couldn't pull it. Humph. This meow is it's just a combat adjustment state. Who's afraid? Darkness is a big deal. The fat meow's mouth was as hard as the iron plate, but the sound was trembling. My heart skipped a beat. How did this good shake like this? Wouldn't you really be shocked by the darkness? But without time to think about it, the monster slapped at it with one claw, and the stone chips flew, almost buried us. I was so anxious that I gritted my teeth and shouted, if you don't move, we'll be a midnight snack. After finally dragging it behind the big stone, I wiped my cold sweat and thought to myself, God, what are my improper things to do with me? Do you want to die with this cat? But at this moment, the fat meow suddenly raised her head, her eyes turned into a twitch, and she growled, Kobayashi, look good, this is the ultimate move of the strongest warrior. After speaking, his mouth was full of exclamations. First, he imitated the wild dog's barking, and then switched to a high note in the vegetable market, dare you dare to try a hair. I'm not finished. The sound replied in the cave, so harsh that I wanted to cover my ears. What's even more, the shadow monster was really confused. It stopped halfway through its claws, and then began to turn around and even swept towards its own shadow, as if it was possessed by an evil spirit. I was stunned and looked at the fat cat shaking its tail proudly. Did you see it? This cat's illusion is unrivaled. These stupid goods are not opponents at all. Okay, you awesome. If you say 2 more sounds, I will take the opportunity to smash that green. I rolled my eyes and pointed to the magic weapon in the hands of the villain leader. The guy stood in the middle of the cave, his face as dark as the bottom, and he certainly didn't expect that he would be shown off by a cat. I put my cat on my waist and touched it from the stone block. My heart beat faster as fast as my old-fashioned washing machine was blown dry, trembling, and I was worried about being discovered every step, for fear of being discovered. At the same time, the Fei Miao's screams became more and more colorful. One could learn to slap the chicken, the other could imitate the phone's sound, and even make a whole stage dance of the god of dance, which could make people laugh. The monster collapsed in the end, attacking each other as if it were inside, completely ignoring the surrounding area. I took the trouble to touch the magic weapon and picked up the sharp stone and smashed it down. With a bang, the green light suddenly darkened halfway. The villain leader shouted with a hint of anger, "You guys dare to hurt things. Do you think this is over? What's under the crack will make you regret today's arrogance. I regret that you are a big ghost, take care of yourself first." I gasped and returned to my mouth, watching his figure shaking, and ran away directly into black smoke, leaving only a fishy smell. The cave finally calmed down, and the shadow monsters scattered into a fog. I sat on the ground, my whole body was sore as if I was being chased by the big mother next door with a rolling stick. "Hey, sir, are you still panting?" I crawled over and saw Fei Miao lying far away, panting like an old fan. I squatted down to check its wound and muttered in a low voice, "I dare to be a turtle again next time. I don't care about you, such a broken cat." "TSK, don't worry about it, I don't need you to worry about it." The fat cat skipped his head, but his claws patted my shoulder lightly. The action was as awkward as a primary school student's award, but my heart was still sour. When will this fat cat comfort people when learning? But he rolled his eyes and covered his face. The fishy smell in the cave has not dissipated yet, and the sound of dripping water from afar is knocking, reminding us that we are almost dead. While I was breathing, I suddenly heard a sudden sound of rushing footsteps. It turned out that the sky was coming. As soon as he entered the cave, he glanced around and said with a brow, "What's going on with you? You're so quiet that the dogs on the street were awakened." That's my master's unique skill. Do you want to register for 2 throats? I grinned and was about to whisper 2 more sentences. When I saw Fei Miao's eyes drifting deep into the crack, I muttered thoughtfully, "Why is there such a ghost talisman in this broken place? It's so damn." I looked around and saw that there were indeed blurred symbols engraved on the stone wall, like some sealed mark, but I was too tired and didn't want to be too much, so I replied, "Don't say anything, I don't carry a slut." After saying that, I leaned against the stone wall to rest. My heartbeat didn't flatten, and my fingers couldn't help but grab the gravel on my body. After repelling the pile of shadow monsters, the fishy smell in the cave disappeared a little. I leaned against the stone wall and gasped for a few breaths. I felt like my whole body was crushed by a cart, and it was so sore. The fat thunder cat next to him was lying on the ground, his tail swung weakly, like an ejaculated ball. Lu Xiaotian was holding the flashlight and shaking it from afar, staring at the stone wall full of ghostly talismans, and his eyebrows were so stunning that a mosquito could be killed. "Hey, sir, can you still get up? That broken stone looks quite evil. Let's go over and take a look." I poked the fat cat and tried to make the fat cat move. He raised his eyes and glanced at me, and his voice was as faint as if it was almost gone. "TSK, I am the strongest warrior in the universe. What's this little injury? But, my legs are a little cramped, so you carry me over." "Carry you? Go for a dream. I recite your weight and I will go directly to the crematorium." I rolled my eyes and muttered in a low voice, "How can I be a warrior like this? I can't walk smoothly now, and I still want to let me be a coolie?" But I still agreed, "Okay, get up and help me, don't really put it on the ground." I pulled it up, Xiao Tian led the way in front, and the 3 of them slowly moved towards the stone wall. The cave was so tight that I walked around and said, "This ghost place is really not something that people can stay. You can collapse anytime." The symbols on the stone wall emitted a dark red light, which made me feel that this broken thing could create a big boss to trick me at any time. I have been coming to a monster 3-story high again and again, and I am afraid I am not going to perform Ascend to Heaven on the spot. Hey, Kobayashi, why do you think this symbol looks like a little brat? This meow is suspected to be a naughty play by ancient naughty kids. Fei Miao stood up and pointed at the stone wall and twitched, his claws trembled as if they were dancing. I knew at a glance that this guy was tired, but he was stubborn and refused to accept it. Come on, sir, you can't even draw a piece of dunk in the state. Is the strongest in the universe? I deliberately cheered it up to make it cheer up. Lu Xiaotian heard it and he answered. He learned the usual bragging words of Fei Miao, and said with a proud voice, yes, I am mighty and domineering. The underground demon king in the area slapped the flying with one claw. Come on, Xiaolin, take this broken stone head as the demon king, and I will show you. As he said, he also exclaimed that he would slid down the martial arts master, and almost fell to eat shit. I couldn't help laughing and joined the battle, pinching my voice to imitate Fei Miao's proud and arrogant voice. Humph. I can even stomp the underground demon king. Is this broken symbol a fart? Let the way. He said that he pretended to wear a slap in his hand and almost knocked himself down. You act like a big show in the country. I'll give you a pass. Fei Miao curled her lips in disgust, but the corner of her mouth finally couldn't help but twitch it, and she was always amused. He stood up shakingly, patted his chest with his paws. Humph, look good, this is the real strongest warrior in the universe. Do you still have to worry about this small matter? Okay, sir, go and open your way. I held back my smile and pushed him, my heart relaxed. The fat cat was always cheered up, otherwise he would be afraid that he would just lie on the ground and turn into a tray. The three of them rushed to the stone wall, and the foam light shone on it, and the symbol line was clearer, like some ancient graphic, and there was also a claw print groove in the middle, which made my back neck sway straight. This thing, the more you look at it, the less you are? I muttered in a low voice, and asked Xiaotian in my head, you know more about it. Do you know what this ghost talisman means? Don't tell me that it is an ancient foreign seller order. Lu Xiaotian touched his chin and thoughtful, it's hard to say. I have heard in the world that the power of this underground seal seems to have something to do with the sound outside the sky. Come on, don't tell these boring ghost stories. Let's get this thing done first. I stopped and thought, if he continues to listen, he can compile a whole set of mythological records. I'm not in the mood to accompany him to archaeology. When he turned around, the Fei Miao stretched out her claws curiously and pressed on the groove. Hey! Fat cat, what are you fucking? What mechanism should I get when I touch it? We have to run away again. I shouted in a hurry, but unfortunately I was one step too late. As soon as his claws touched, a dark red light suddenly lit up on the entire stone wall, slitting directly into the top of the cave, like a special effect of the villain resurrection in the movie. My legs were soft and I thought to myself, done, this fat cat is going to see King Guan again. You're so fucked. This meow just checked, it's not a blow-up shot. The fat meow turned around and glared at me, but before he finished speaking, his body suddenly became soft and directly on the ground, with his eyelids drooping, as if he had fallen asleep. My brain was stunned and I had no thoughts. I squatted down and sneered at him, hey! Sir, don't wear it. Wake up. It's not time to sleep now. Lu Xiaotian also came over, checked with a serious expression, and said in a low voice, it should be exhausting enough to touch the sign, and it may have triggered a common bird. This thing is probably some kind of seal shadow, which cannot be separated from the underground power. He turned to look at the stone wall, and the light gradually darkened, but the groove of the claw print was still flashing with a faint light, as if it was implying something. Common birds? Seal? Do you mean this fat cat has any relatives with this broken stone head? I hugged the fat cat, patted it on his face and complained, and my heart was so sad. This guy is usually very odd, but I am so panicked when I really lay down. The sound of water dripping in the cave was sensational, making me feel so nervous that I always felt something big would happen in the next second. No matter what, wake it up first. There are other dangers here, so we can't lack teammates. After Yen Xiaotian finished speaking in a deep voice, he took out a small bottle of water from his bag and slapped it onto the fat cat's brain without hesitation. After a few minutes, the effect of the bottle of water from Xiaotian was as open as it was. The fat Thunderbolt finally shook its wet hair, and its brain was still slight, and it sounded a powerful meow. The sound of water dripping in the cave was still so harsh, and the air was as tight as the quilt soaked in water, making me feel uncomfortable. The glimmer of the symbols on the stone wall flickered, and the atmosphere was so tight that the fat cat woke up and his paintings tilted directly into outer space. Mortals, hear the order. Fat Miao suddenly sat upright, his claws flapped, his eyes flashed with a strange light, as if he had just been hit by a head-on reward. I Miao has won the power of heaven. From now on, you are my Miao's loyal believers. Come and worship. I was stunned for a moment, suspected that my ears were bruised by water, and turned my head to look at Xiaotian. This guy actually laughed and really cooperated with both hands to fold them together, and knocked his head out loud. The cat of heaven is above, please give me a bow from the villain. Hey, are you really playing? I rolled my eyes wide and couldn't help but burst out, the power of heaven? Come on, sir, your brain is damaged by the symbols. I was just lying on the ground and wearing a slap, and now I'm a god. The fat Miao glanced at me, and his tail was thrown away. Humph, Xiaolin, you know nothing. This Miao just heard the slander in the stone wall. It was a sacred call. Do you understand? This is called destiny. After speaking, he still thrust his chest, but he was too weak and almost fell back to the ground. Okay, isn't it? You always stand firm and then talk about becoming a god. I held it, my mouth was awkward, and my heart was secretly relaxed. Xiaotian continued to play the role, kneeling down and knocking his head as if he was looking for money. The big choice of heaven, please give the little man some divine power, so that I can also become the second strong warrior in the universe. Depending on your integrity, I will accept you as my disciple. Fat Miao laughed at the head, and there was no way he could tell that he was playing tricks on him. I watched this song and thought, why didn't this hole collapse and buried you? How could I, a normal person, get into this kind of sand sculpture? But looking at Fat Miao's smug expression, I felt like I was poked lightly in my heart. It was so sour and a little uncomfortable. This fat cat has a very fat mouth, but when I fainted, I was really afraid that it would be so burping. I deliberately coughed and muttered in a low voice, okay, Lord God, don't be busy accepting disciples first. Can I go 2 steps to prove my divine power? I'm not bad. Fei Miao raised her head and walked with a swaying step of her head. As if she was drunk, she finally relied on me to help her and didn't fall. I held my stomach sore that my stomach hurts, and I thought to myself, just you, is it the God-selected Miao? The choice of the wrestle is almost the same. After a while, the 3 of us decided to leave the ghost place in the stone wall and found a dry corner to build a village in the depths of the cave. I was responsible for making fire, and I was busy for a long time. Not only did the fire get up, but I also made myself covered in black and gray, just like I was digging coal. The fat cat smiled and slammed in a slight smile, pointing at me with his paws. Your skill can burn charcoal, but not firewood. Come on, I will teach you how to become the strongest man in the universe. Tell you. If I continue to learn, I will burn this cave. I wiped my face, smeared my backhand in firewood. Of course I was deliberately biased. Lu Xiaotian laughed and took out a small bag of dry rice from his bag and gave us each one a piece of hard breasts. Don't give me some food to supplement. I'll drink it all the way. As I bit my breasts, I suddenly remembered what happened before. For example, when I fell into a trap, it was the fat cat who was hard on the stone and let me crawl out first, but my legs were blue. I also ate poisonous weeds and rolled my eyes and said that it was a special training of the universe warrior. I couldn't help laughing. Sir, do you remember? Last time I ate grass and foamed at me, I told me that it was to enhance my body. Lu Xiaotian also took the lead and learned the fat cat's vocals. Yes, I never miss it. That's just trying to poison you mortals. The fat Miao was ridiculed and couldn't hold it back, but the corners of her mouth twitched, pretending to be disdainful, and shook her tail. "TSK, what do you know? That's called being fearless." Although he said this, his eyes were staring at the dry rice, muttering in a low voice, "But, this breast is so fragrant, can you give it to half a piece?" The fire was swaying, and the three of them ate and chatted together, and the coldness of the cave seemed to be dispersed a lot. Lu Xiaotian mentioned, "I heard that there is a foggy mountain beside the great Daxia Dynasty. There are ancient temples that can travel through time and space hidden in the mountains. Unfortunately, no one has really found it." Traveling through time and space? Bragging. I curled my lips and complained, but after seeing Fei Miao's ears slightly moved, and there was curiosity in my eyes, I broke the topic. "I care more about what to eat next than Guyan." "Sir, aren't you the god-chosen Meow? How many fish are coming out? See? Go dream." Fat Meow glared at me, but immediately approached, patted my shoulder lightly with his claws, and said in a low voice, "Don't worry, I will leave some tricks to trick you when I leave. Don't miss me too much. You go?" I was stunned, as if I had bitten an unripe persimmon in my heart, so I couldn't speak, and deliberately pretended to be stupid. "Who cares about your absolute skills? But I really dare to run. Who is here to cover us? Humph, I haven't eaten fish, and I haven't solved the troubles in this broken place. What's the way to go?" Fatty raised his head, pretending to be disdainful, but his tail quietly slammed my wrist, as if he was scattering. I looked down and my heart felt like I was covered in sunlight, burning a little uncomfortable. This fat cat has a very stubborn mouth, but in fact, I have never let us go. The next morning, the fire in the cave camp was still warm. The weak robber who fainted last night seemed to be completely gone. He suddenly popped up from the rag and made a sound of meow that exploded, which shocked my ears. Mortals hear it well. The journey of the God-choose Meow has officially started. This Meow wants to take you back to the capital to get the help of the master. I rubbed my sleepy eyes and almost got caught by this silence. "Dawei, can you not scare me this morning? Jingtu and other things, let's talk about Maoli first. It's like a fried chicken now." Lu Xiaotian was laughing beside him, passing a hard breast. "Come on, the big sky is the choice of Meow. Fill your stomach first, don't shout you're too hot." The fat cat snorted, took the pussy and chewed it all over his mouth, and did not forget to glance at me. "Xiaolin, you know what a bad thing." The low-key words in this cat's brain are getting stronger and stronger. That is the call of divine power. "Hurry up, follow, go to the stone wall to find a way." After speaking, he shook his chubby body and shook deep into the cave. Lu Xiaotian and I looked at each other, and could only keep up. I complained in my heart, 80% of this goods are a fool again, and the syllable is a low-key character. I'm afraid my stomach was humming last night. When I arrived in front of the stone wall, the blue light flashed lightly and darkly, and it was swaying. The fat Meow raised her head and her chest, her claws poked the stone wall, and muttered in her mouth, "The power of a great symbol, I'm summoning you here, let's see your spirit." I rolled my eyes and said, "Come on, why do you look like you are swaying in this posture? I really have divine power, change the fish first and come out to slap." The fake model of Xiaotian pretended to have both hands clasped. "The cat of heaven is above, please pay attention to the passage, the villain worships it to the end." As a result, the voice fell, and the sound of the bump of the stone wall cracked, revealing a black passage. The fat cat jumped 3 feet high in surprise. "Meow. This cat is indeed the choice of God." My mouth twitched. "Okay, God chooses God. What should I do in this passage?" "Don't be shivering with your hair." The passage was as narrow as a dog's hole, and the air was so thick that I was trembling, that I was so cold that I shivered. After walking for a few steps, the scene in front of me suddenly changed, and the mist was covered. In the blink of an eye, I realized that the fat cat was missing. Only Lu Xiaotian and I were standing in the darkness. My heart suddenly became nervous, and I felt as if I had fallen into an ice hole. I gritted my teeth and shouted, "Damn fat cat, dare you run away to try it? I'll cover us, who will I find to breathe?" Lu Xiaotian's face was not right, and he muttered in a low voice, "It's me again, the smell of failure is so damn hard." I was about to ask what happened, but I heard the trembling sound of the fat cat coming from the fog. "Hey, don't throw this cat down. Although this broken place is numb, you are more important than fish." His voice was so small that it hummed with mosquitoes, but every word made my chest feel panicked. I was stunned for a moment, my eyes were as if sand had penetrated, so I didn't dare to raise my head, so I could only yell back, "Wonder. Who will throw you down? Who deserves to be beaten?" Lu Xiaotian patted his shoulder and smiled lightly. "The cat of heaven, I can't find a second master like this when I leave." After speaking, he took out half a piece of dry batter and threw it into the fog. "Hey, illusion monster, eat eggs." The magical thing was that the fog really dispersed, and the three of us gathered together again, sweating all over, looking at each other, and seeing each other with more eyes. I lowered my head and pretended to wipe my sweat, and secretly glanced at Fei Miao, and couldn't help but rinse the corners of my mouth. Continue to walk forward, passing a broken wall with a cat-shaped figure on it, which looks like the fat cat, but the symbol next to it has not been painted. The fat cat glanced at it, and his tail was thrown away. "How come this cat looks like me?" "But the symbol has not been finished. I am an immoral designer." Lu Xiaotian and I laughed, and when the jokes were heard, I didn't think much about it. Finally, the passage was connected with a cellar, and when I pushed the door, I found it was the mansion of the power minister. My heart beat faster and I whispered, "Damn, this kind of energy is outrageous, right? Just go into the enemy?" Fei Miao was not afraid at all. She walked in with great force, pointing at the heavy face in front of her. "Mortal, I am the emperor chosen by heaven. Kneel down and confess your sins, otherwise you will serve him by divine power." He smiled and said, "Where are wild cats that dare to come and go wild?" Fei Miao was not to be outdone, so he jumped onto the table and shaped, "Look, this Miao's divine power can make you cry and cry." As a result, he threw his tail and swung off a box on the table, fell out a secret letter, and wrote a plan full of reversal plans. The face of the power minister turned pale in an instant, and he was busy trying to write a letter. Lu Xiaotian and I quickly pushed up and pressed him down. I picked up the letter and couldn't help laughing. "Sir, your divine power is Tailmaster, right? It's already amazing." Fei Miao was also confused, looked at his tail, and looked at us again. Ben Miao would have been fine. This is what Dynasty is possessed." Lu Xiao was so happy that he patted his legs. "Okay, Dynasty is yours, but we scored a little bit in total, right?" After a while, the back of the story was finally revealed, and the three of us stood in the cellar and gasped. Fat Miao licked her paws and muttered in a low voice, "I haven't eaten fish, and the troubles are solved. When will the next adventure start?" I rolled my eyes and deliberately said stubbornly, "With you, you can't miss the cheating of us anyway." After saying that, I patted her brain, stopped her hand, and felt warm in my heart.